Have you ever been told that red meat is bad for you, while chicken and fish are always good? Did you know Americans eat over 220 pounds of meat every year, yet heart disease remains the #1 killer? It sounds simple, right? Red equals danger, white equals safe, fish equals perfect. But what if I told you that much of this belief comes more from marketing and half-truths than from real science? Tonight, we are going to break down these myths together. We'll look at beef, pork, chicken, and salmon, not from the grocery ads, but from the perspective of nutrition, circulation, and brain health. You'll see surprising facts: that some red meat may actually be safer than factory farm chicken, that salmon can contain more of a certain chemical than beef, and that how you cook your food can be more important than the color of the meat itself. Let me tell you a short story. One of my patients, a retired firefighter, was proud of giving up beef completely for 10 years. He ate mostly chicken nuggets and farm salmon, believing he was making the healthiest choice. Yet when his blood test came back, his cholesterol and inflammation markers were still high. Way by, because it wasn't the red meat that was the problem. It was the quality of the meat and how it was prepared. So in this video, we'll clear the confusion once and for all. I'll show you the truth about fats, omega ratios, and the role of cooking methods. By the end, you'll have a clear checklist for choosing meat that supports your heart, your brain, and your years ahead. Stay with me, because what you learn tonight could change not only what's on your plate, but how long and how well you live. What we think we know about meat. Let's start with the basics. What do we really mean when we say red meat or white meat? In nutrition science, red meat refers to beef, pork, lamb, basically meats that are darker in color before cooking. White meat usually means chicken and turkey, and of course, fish is placed in its own category. Sounds simple, right? But here's where the confusion begins. Decades ago, pork producers launched a huge marketing campaign. They called pork the other white meat. You might even remember the commercials. It made people believe pork was healthier, just like chicken. But scientifically, pork is still red meat. That one marketing trick has shaped public opinion for years. And it's not just pork. Many people have been taught that chicken is always the safe choice, and fish is always the healthiest. Meanwhile, beef gets treated like the villain. But science paints a more complex picture. Yes, some cuts of beef are high in fat, but so are certain types of fish and even chicken with the skin. And yes, fish is usually praised. But did you know some farm salmon contains more chemical residues than grass-fed beef? The myth of red equals bad, white equals good is just too simple. Your health depends not only on the color of the meat, but also on the quality of the source and how you prepare it in your kitchen. So let me ask you, when you choose meat at the store, do you still think in terms of red versus white? Or do you look deeper at how the animal was raised and how you'll cook it? And next, we'll compare the basic nutrition facts of beef, pork, chicken, and salmon to see which ones truly support your health and which ones quietly put strain on your heart. What's really inside beef, pork, chicken, and salmon? Now that we've cleared up some myths, let's look at the numbers that really matter. What's actually inside these meats we eat every week? Let's start with fat content. Beef can range from 5% fat in lean cuts to 30% in fattier ground beef. After cooking, it usually averages around 15%. Pork, on average, about 10%. Chicken breast skinless comes in at about 9–10%. And salmon, surprisingly, about 13%. So as you can see, chicken isn't always the lowest fat choice. But here's the real key. It's not just how much fat, but what kind of fat. Beef and pork are about 45% monounsaturated fat, the same heart-healthy fat found in olive oil. Chicken has a little less, about 35%, and salmon about 40%. What about the fats we worry about? Saturated fat? Beef is about 40% saturated fat, pork 35%, chicken 30%, salmon much lower, around 20%. And then there are polyunsaturated fats, the ones that include omega-3 and omega-6. Beef is only about 5%, pork 10–20%, chicken 15–30%, and salmon, a powerful 40–50%. That's why salmon is often praised as heart food. But again, these are averages. They change depending on the cut, the cooking, and especially how the animal was raised. So here's a quick summary you can picture like a simple chart. Thinking chicken is always lean, not true. Looking at the actual body type gives a clearer picture. The lesson is simple. Don't judge your meat by its color, judge it by what's really inside. So let me ask you, when you plan your meals, do you check the fat type or do you only think about red versus white? Next, we'll go deeper into the balance of omega-6 and omega-3 and why this ratio might be the single most important factor for your brain and heart health. Good fats versus bad fats. Understanding the difference. Now that we know meats have different kinds of fat, let's slow down and understand what those fats actually do in your body. Not all fat is your enemy. In fact, some fats are essential for your heart and brain. Monounsaturated fats, MUFA, are the good guys. These are the same healthy fats found in olive oil and avocados. They help lower bad cholesterol and support your heart. Beef and pork contain about 45% MUFA, which is actually a strong positive point. Polyunsaturated fats, PUFA, include both omega-3 and omega-6. When balanced, they reduce inflammation and protect your brain and arteries. Chicken and salmon give you more PUFA, and salmon in particular is rich in omega-3, which lowers risk of stroke and supports memory. But here's the caution. Saturated fats, SFA, found more in beef and pork can raise LDL cholesterol when eaten in excess. That doesn't mean they're poison. It means moderation is key. A small portion of lean beef is very different from a plate full of fatty sausages. Let me give you a real example. The Mediterranean diet, famous for heart health, doesn't completely cut out red meat. Instead, it balances small amounts of lean meat with plenty of fish, vegetables, and olive oil. That's why people in Greece and Italy have lower heart disease rates than many Americans. So the lesson here is this. Don't fear all fats. Learn which ones to welcome and which ones to limit. Here's a simple way to remember. MUFA and omega-3, heart and brain protection. Too much SFA and processed fats, inflammation and heart strain. So let me ask you, when you choose your meals, do you think about the kind of fat, or do you only think low fat equals healthy? Next, we'll dive deeper into omega-6 and omega-3, and why the balance between these two may be more important than the total fat itself. Omega-6 versus omega-3, the golden ratio for health. Now let's talk about something that almost no food label tells you, the balance between omega-6 and omega-3 fats. Both of these are essential. Your body cannot make them on its own, so you must get them from food. Omega-6 helps with growth and healing. Omega-3 reduces inflammation, protects your brain, and keeps your heart rhythm steady. The key is balance, and this is where modern diets often go wrong. In nature, grass-fed beef has a ratio of about 2.1 or 4.12 parts omega-6 for every 1 part omega-3. That's a healthy balance. But grain-fed, factory-raised beef? The ratio jumps to 10.1 or even 20.1. Pork from industrial farms can be 20.1 to 30.1. Chicken from factory farms? Often 15.1 to 20.1. Why does this matter? Because too much omega-6 compared to omega-3 creates chronic inflammation. And chronic inflammation is the silent spark behind heart disease, stroke, and even dementia. Now let's look at salmon. Wild-caught salmon has an ideal balance, rich in omega-3 with a ratio close to 4:1. But farmed salmon? It can be only 1:1 or 2:1 because of the feed used in fish farms. Still good, but not the superfood people imagine. There was a study published in Neurology that followed older adults. Those who consumed higher omega-3 levels had lower rates of stroke and better memory in their 70s and 80s. That's the power of this golden ratio. Here's a simple way to think about it. Industrial pork, chicken, and grain-fed beef. Too much omega-6, not enough omega-3. Grass-fed beef, free-range chicken, and wild salmon. Better balance, healthier aging. The lesson is clear. It's not just the type of meat, but how the animal was raised that shapes your health. So let me ask you, when you buy meat, do you look for grass-fed or wild-caught, or do you just choose whatever is cheapest? Next, we'll explore another hot topic, TMAO, a chemical often blamed for heart disease, and why the truth about it might surprise you. TMAO and heart disease concerns. What's the real story? You may have heard about a compound called TMAO. In recent years, it's been mentioned in news articles and even doctors' offices. The message often sounds scary. Red meat raises TMAO, and TMAO causes heart disease. But the truth, as always, is more complicated. TMAO stands for trimethylamine N-oxide. It's a substance your body makes in the gut when bacteria break down certain foods, like red meat, eggs, and fish. Yes, higher TMAO levels have been linked to heart disease and kidney problems. But here's the surprising part. Fish, yes, the same fish that doctors call heart healthy, contains 10 to 50 times more TMAO than red meat. And yet, populations that eat a lot of fish, like the Japanese, have some of the lowest rates of heart disease in the world. So what does this mean? It means TMAO is not the villain by itself. It may be more of a marker, a signal of how your body is processing food, rather than a direct cause of disease. Let me give you an example. One of my patients came to me worried because she read that eating beef once a week would poison her heart. But when we looked at her overall diet, she ate mostly vegetables, fruit, fish, and whole grains. Her blood pressure and cholesterol were excellent. In her case, a small portion of lean beef was not a danger. What mattered was her total lifestyle, not one compound. The lesson here is this: don't let fear headlines control your choices. Science is about context. A diet rich in whole foods, balanced fats, and moderation in meat is far more important than one chemical name. So let me ask you, when you hear about a scary chemical like TMAO, do you immediately cut out entire foods? Or do you pause to look at the bigger picture? Next, we'll shift to something you can control directly: how you cook your meat, because the way you prepare it may matter even more than the type of meat you choose. Cooking matters more than the type of meat. Let's imagine two plates. On one plate, you have a small piece of lean beef lightly grilled. On the other, you have chicken nuggets from a fast food chain. Which one do you think is healthier? Most people would point to the chicken nuggets because chicken has a healthier image. But the truth is that simple piece of beef is likely far better for your body. Why? Because how we cook meat often matters more than the type of meat itself. When meat is fried in deep oil, covered in breading, or charred on the grill until black, it creates harmful compounds. Things like HCA, heterocyclic amines, and AGE, advanced glycation end products. These can increase inflammation and damage blood vessels over time. On the other hand, gentle cooking methods like steaming, boiling, or light pan searing help preserve nutrients without creating those harmful byproducts. I remember one patient who proudly said, "Doctor, I only eat chicken." But when I asked how she cooked it, she laughed and said, "Always fried crispy, just the way I love it." Her cholesterol numbers told the rest of the story. Here's a simple checklist. Avoid deep frying and blackened char. Choose steaming, boiling, or light pan cooking. The lesson is simple. It's not just what you eat, it's how you prepare it. So let me ask you, what's your favorite way to cook meat at home? And do you think it's helping your health or quietly hurting it? Next, we'll step back and look at the bigger picture: how different cultures around the world eat meat, and what lessons we can learn from them for healthier aging. Global eating patterns: how the world eats meat. Sometimes the best way to understand our own habits is to look at how other cultures eat. Let's start with the United States. Americans eat about 220 pounds of meat per year. That's nearly 100 kilograms. And most of it is chicken from industrial farms. Convenient, cheap, but not always the healthiest. Now compare that with Japan. Fish makes up nearly 60% of their animal protein. They eat smaller portions of meat, and much of it is grilled or simmered gently. Japan has one of the highest life expectancies in the world. Then there's the Mediterranean region. Countries like Greece and Italy, they eat far less red meat than Americans, but plenty of vegetables, olive oil, beans, and fish. Their diet has been studied for decades, and it consistently shows lower rates of heart disease and stroke. And here's an interesting contrast. In Argentina, beef is central to the culture. They eat more beef per person than almost any country. Yet many Argentinians still live long because much of their beef is grass-fed and cooked simply over open flames, not ultra-processed into hot dogs and nuggets. What's the lesson here? It's not about banning meat. It's about balance, variety, and the quality of what you choose. Let me share a story. One of my patients traveled to Italy for 3 months. She told me, "Doctor, I ate pasta, olive oil, and even beef, but I lost weight and felt more energy." Why? Because her meals were balanced, with more plants, better fats, and less processed food. So the message is clear. Different cultures show us different paths, but they all point to the same truth. Your health is shaped not just by the meat you eat, but by the whole plate it sits on. So let me ask you, if you could borrow one eating habit from another culture, which one would you try first? Next, we'll bring the focus back home to what seniors in America really need and how to include meat safely as part of healthy aging. Practical guidance for seniors. How to include meat safely. As we grow older, our bodies change. We don't build muscle as easily, and our digestion slows down. That's why seniors need protein more than ever, to maintain strength, balance, and independence. But here's the challenge. Eating too much of the wrong kind of meat can strain the heart, raise cholesterol, and increase stroke risk. So how can seniors enjoy meat safely? Here are a few simple guidelines. First, choose quality over quantity. A small piece of grass-fed beef or free-range chicken is better than a large serving of processed deli meat or sausage. Second, balance your plate. Pair meat with vegetables, beans, and whole grains. This reduces inflammation and supports digestion. Third, moderation is key. 2 to 3 servings of fish per week, 1 or 2 small portions of lean red meat, and the rest from poultry and plant proteins. That's a healthy mix. I remember one of my patients, age 75, he was worried he had to give up meat forever. But once we adjusted his portions, a little salmon here, a slice of lean beef there, his energy returned and his blood work actually improved. So the lesson is clear. Seniors don't need to fear meat. They just need to eat it wisely. Here's a quick checklist. Eat meat in smaller portions. Prefer grass-fed, wild-caught, or free-range. Avoid heavily processed meats. Always pair with colorful vegetables. So let me ask you, how do you usually include meat in your meals? And what small change could make your plate healthier today? Next, we'll wrap everything up with a simple checklist. A doctor's summary of how to choose and prepare meat for long life and healthy aging. Eating meat the smart way. We've covered a lot of ground together, from myths about red and white meat to fats, omega balance, cooking, and global lessons. Now let's bring it all home with a simple checklist. Think of it as your meat guide for healthy aging. Choose quality over quantity. Grass-fed beef, free-range chicken, and wild-caught fish. Portion wisely. Smaller servings, enjoyed slowly, are better than oversized plates. Balance your meals. Always pair meat with vegetables, beans, and whole grains. Cook gently. Steam, boil, or pan-sear. Avoid deep frying and heavy charring. Prioritize variety. 2 to 3 servings of fish per week, 1 or 2 small portions of lean red meat, and the rest from poultry and plant proteins. Limit processed meats. Hot dogs, cheap sausages, and nuggets should be the rare exception, not the rule. And here's something most people forget. Eating is not just about your body. It's also about joy, connection, and peace of mind. A balanced plate is one that nourishes both your health and your happiness. I'll leave you with this thought. There is no perfect meat or perfect diet. There are only better choices, made day by day. Every time you choose wisely, you give your heart, your brain, and your future self a gift of more time and better living. So let me ask you, what's one small change you can make at your next meal that will move you closer to long life and good health? Thank you for staying with me through this journey. If you found this helpful, share it with a friend. And let's spread the knowledge that healthy aging is built on small, smart choices.